It's go time.
Welcome everyone to Quick Kicks here on Third Down Gamble. I'm Don Charbon, along with a very special guest. It's Jim Mullin, the president of Football Canada. Jim, welcome to the show. Glad to have you with us. Talk to me about what's been going on with Football Canada in the last little while.
Well, I know what's been going on with me. It's mainly been focused on SFU, but Football Canada has been preparing for the Women's National Flag Championship that's coming up in Montreal, May 5th and 6th. And that flag championship is a collegiate flag championship. I think one of the things that we're trying to do in the college space is to build more paths for women to play football and to forge a path with youth sports over the next couple of years that we can create women's flag as a varsity sport. In Quebec, the RSEQ already sponsors women's flag football. There's a structure there behind it, not just with RSEQ at the university level, but also at the CJEP level. So we find that most of our national team right now comes from Quebec. There's a good cohort from Saskatchewan as well. We'd really like to work with the institutions across Canada to develop some paths now, whether it's in Ontario with the Ontario Women's Intercollegiate Football League, whether it's in Canada West working regionally in pockets, whether it's in the AUS, to create a true national championship. And I think this speaks, and I know we're probably going to speak about SFU here in a second, but I think this speaks to gender equity in the game. And it's one of the reasons why I've fought so hard for the SFU program, because men's tackle programs at universities, in my mind, are conveyors to other opportunities. And what I mean by that is through that 110 player cohort, we want to generate opportunities for those players in a different season to coach and officiate and then support the growth of women's flag football at the university level. I think it's much easier to create that infrastructure when that football team is already there. SFU's decision to eliminate the men's team in turn actually takes away decisions and opportunities for women to join in the game. And that's going to be very important as well as we move forward towards getting flag football in the Olympic Games. It's certainly not confirmed yet, but there's an IOC meeting in Mumbai in October, which will determine which sports are included just on the Los Angeles 2028 Games agenda. And flag football is one of those things. Obviously, you've seen the shift to flag at the Pro Bowl. That's very intentional by the NFL to have that focus. We're feeling confident, but we're not feeling cocky about at the IFAF level about getting this to the Olympic Games. So with that, I think there'll be a real cultural shift around the game. It's something that we're preparing for at Football Canada in terms of that growth.
You made a reference to cultural shift. What exactly does that entail? And how is it applied when we're talking about men and women in football?
Well, it's a bit about gender equity. There's no question about that, especially on the flag side. We have a women's national tackle team. They played in Finland this past summer. They've won silver medals all the way up to now. They were kept off the podium by Great Britain and Finland. Of course, the Americans won first place there. But the numbers for women's tackle in comparison to men's tackle or boys tackle, it's barely comparable. I think when you start digging into the numbers and the participation, even outside of Football Canada registered programs, but just recreational programs, it really gets closer to that 40, 60, 45, 55 number in terms of participation. There's also co-ed as well that takes root both in the youth side and in the adult side as well. The other cultural shift on this is that having an Olympic Games as an objective changes things in terms of the culture. Right now, we've just got professional leagues for men in tackle as an objective if you play the game, right? You got the CFL, you've got the NFL. Maybe you'll go over and play in Europe for a little while, right? With the possible opportunity of going and playing in an Olympic Games. That for our organization, that changes our funding model. For the athletes, it creates way more opportunity. For the universities, it makes it more attractive for them to pick up flag football programs. And as I said about 5 minutes ago about that conveyor, the stronger that we can make flag football programs in the springtime, the stronger we can make tackle programs in the fall. There's that piece, and then there's also the piece of our LTAD, our long-term athlete development program. We want kids to pick up the game at a much younger age, 4, 5, 6, 7, but pick up flag football just so you can develop the skill set and the confidence in the game, so that when you progress up to the age of about 12, families can start making that decision whether or not they want their child to play tackle football, play flag football, maybe put that tackle decision off a little bit, or play both. There'll be that opportunity to play both as well, to have that skill set, have that confidence that you can move forward. I think that's all positive. So the LTAD piece, the Olympic piece, and the current men's program supporting the growth of women's programs, I think those are three parts that are all part of the cultural transformation we're just starting to experience in football. But with an Olympic thing, it's going to change the face of the game in this country, I think. We've seen how the Olympics have changed curling, for instance, and how that impacts. Would it have the same sort of dramatic impact in flag football, where you'd see maybe teams form independently and try to go, or would it be a case where they'd have to be a part of a certain system? Well, I think in flag, and with my conversations that I've had with USA Football, there's a number of groups right now with some private funding that exists with outside a national development system that really want to take a run at professionalizing the game or creating tournament opportunities that exist outside of the national model. And God bless them. The more people that go out there and play football, the better. That's fine. But if you actually have aspirations to play on a national team, play on a provincial team, you have to do it through the PSOs, the provincial organizations, and you have to do it through the NSO, the National Sports Organization. So at the end of the day, it's going to be, Football Canada and its 10 partners that determine the outcome of how we get to the Olympics. How you want to develop outside of that is up to you as an athlete. If you think that going outside the system to get training, to get gameplay, to do those things, that's fine. But we intend moving forward to provide all those things, and to provide all those things at a low cost that's very accessible to people right across the socioeconomic lines. The focus now is to be prepared with tournament opportunities at the national level and at the provincial level, and eventually develop a national team, both on the men's and the women's side, that are capable of hitting a podium. Simon Fraser University, it's been a hot button topic for months now. It started back when the Lone Star Conference said to the team, you're not welcome here anymore. What is happening now? We've heard about litigation. If anyone, you're the person who is most on the pulse of what's happening with that. For full transparency, done a lot of interviews this week. I think I'm getting worn out. Being president of Football Canada, and actually, being out here on the coast, it's allowed me to engage with the SFU alumni group, who's been trying to find paths to save this program, to do two things from my position. One of them is, my personal skill set of running communications plans. And I think in terms of getting the message out, I think in terms of establishing the storyline that amazingly has gone basically unchallenged by the university. I think we've done an outstanding job of that. And I think by being able to tell our story in an effective way, we've been able to build all the stakeholders that are visible to everyone in an alliance on this. The most encouraging thing that I think that I can take out of this is look across the football ecosystem in this country, the CFL, the CFLPA, the university coaches, the CJFL, the local PSOs, and then you start digging down into mayors of cities around Simon Fraser. There were member statements both by the NDP and the Conservative Party in the last couple of days. I can start digging down more and more and more, but we're united. Instead of being in silos all over the place and working to our own purposes, we're working for these young student athletes because of the way they've been treated by the university, and we're working to maintain and grow our sport. And that's what the focus has been over this last month. And I think that, at the end of the day, that's pretty fantastic. I think what's been tragic is how it just doesn't seem to matter to the university. The response, the engagement, it's been lacking. And now they're going through a process of where they're trying to reverse engineer transparency and consultation. And I don't think a lot of us are buying it. I think I said it was two things. The second thing is being able to be in a position with an NSO where I can reach out and have conversations with stakeholders like U Sports and Canada West. I'll put it this way. I think the way that Simon Fraser characterized the position of both those organizations at the time is not the situation we have today. I think that U Sports is open. They will work earnestly to try to find a solution in terms of their role in this. And I believe that Canada West will as well. If there's a team there and if the university applies to both those organizations. Technically, they have to apply to Canada West first. Then they have to apply to U Sports second. But those things would be ongoing if the team is resurrected. We're sitting here on a Saturday right now. We're really hoping that there can be a conversation in Victoria with the provincial government and the university, the leadership of the university. Beautiful sunny day. Might be a nice day for the president and the minister in charge to go on a picnic and have a conversation about this to maybe change some minds. Because I don't think anyone on any side of this argument wants to see 5 young student athletes head off to Supreme Court on Monday morning to take on a university. It's a terrible look for Simon Fraser. I'm not sure if it does anyone any good, even those of us who have been crusading to resurrect the team. It's good that we're showing some fight in this. It's good that we have a strategy with this. No one wants to see student athletes take on a university at Supreme Court. Hopefully, we don't have to go down that road. We are scheduled to be there Monday at 10 in the morning. We've got a full day at court. Hopefully, we'll have a judgment by 4 on the injunction. If it is positive, then we will have the team restored back to where the way it was on April 3rd, and it will likely come with some caveats that will force the university to follow through on creating an operating football team. If the alumni, if those 5 players technically, but the alumni group loses, there are a few more avenues that they can go through to try to resurrect the team. But the one thing that SFU's been good at with the way they made this announcement at the time they did is everybody's running out of time, right? They made the announcement when the kids were in exams, which is in my mind unconscionable. These people are supposed to be educators. They made the announcement at a time when most of the scholarship money out there is used up. So the players can't really move forward with the same economic opportunity to attend schools if they have to move on elsewhere. The timing of this has been kind of vicious. And unfortunately, if we end up on the on the wrong side of a verdict than on the injunction, then I think 2023 is not much of a possibility.
This is the BC Supreme Court.
Correct.
I guess for people to understand this, there's the student athletes in this. You talk about the football team, but why is this so important? Why? Because they were playing in the United States. They had been with the Canada West 15 years ago, but they pulled out. What is sort of the moral part of this whole fight?
Well, it's 110 opportunities for young men, and up until last year, it was kind of 109 opportunities for young men and one young woman, Christy Elliott, who was their kicker on that team. It's taking away opportunities from young men at universities. And you know what? This has been the elephant in the room. No one's wanted to really address it. When you're looking at universities across this country right now, the gender divide is 42% male and 58% female. You can't take away opportunities for young men who would normally not attend university and expect that trend to change. We're reaching a bit of a crisis point here in terms of young men and post-secondary education and their role on campuses in this country and on this continent. And this, in my mind, cancel this football team is a regressive step in that regard. I think it's also a regressive step in that they didn't do their due diligence at Simon Fraser to consult a stakeholder like ourselves to say, if you keep that team in place, you got the infrastructure to build a women's flag team off the back end of it to actually create more opportunity for women in the sport. I've dug into this. That's one of the conclusions that I come up with. The other piece that's emerged to me during these last 4 weeks or so is, up on campus with teams other than the football team, women's soccer team right now is under investigation, and the coach has been put under suspension during the process. There's a group of 25 young women that would love to come out and tell their story, but they're terrified. We tried to encourage them over the last couple of weeks to finally step forward, but they're locked in such fear in terms of where they've positioned themselves in regard to the university administration. They just don't feel like they can come forward. To know that there's a story like that exists on campus outside of the way the football team's been treated. In this story that for me, with all the trust and faith that I have in university sports in Canada, it's really disquieting. It really is.
What are the roadblocks for Simon Fraser to return to Canada West? I had mentioned that they've been there before. What's the biggest thing that they have to overcome?
Well, first of all, it's the administration reestablishing the football team, either through court or through the court of public opinion. But beyond that, there is an independent schedule drawn up of 9 games. So they got to get out on the field, play that schedule, while at the same time they have those discussions with Canada West. The administration just has to apply, first of all. They literally have to put an application in with Canada West and U Sports. And then that's when the negotiation begins on this piece. And, the one strong part here from our Football Canada perspective is that, we have done the homework where we want to be able to contribute with some ideas that create a football-specific solution. Football is a unique sport within universities in Canada. It takes more infrastructure. It has more profile. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a football guy. Football has way more profile than the other sports. But also, universities in this country have a historical ownership over this game. The game in North America started at the University of Toronto on fields outside of the U of T as early as 1861. Now we've found out, with a North American hybrid version of the game of rugby. They started on the fields at McGill University. The McGill Harvard game split into 2 parts in 1874, changed the trajectory of what we know now as American and Canadian football. That was born from Canadian universities, right? That they have a very special place in ensuring that this game not only is maintained but grows and moves forward, right? To place that historical burden on U Sports and Canada West, I think is important. But I think the one thing these two groups are reacting to is there's been just such a push through media and storytelling, whether it's mums, whether it's alumni, whether it's the alumni that felt so strongly that 11 of them decided to march out of the SFU Sports Hall of Fame. That's for people don't know about that type of cultural bond with those who have spent those 4 or 5 years at university and are recognized as the best in the history of their school. That's some serious stuff. That was a hard decision for those 11 individuals, and we're talking some big names here. We're talking about Louis Pasaglia and Dave Cutler and Doug Brown and Glenn Jackson, and I could go through the list. These are significant contributors to the reputation and character of this school, and to do that, I can't think that the administration isn't paying attention to this. It's the old sports say, it's got to hurt. It's got to hurt.
What would be your charge to the court? What are you going to argue in front of the court, that they don't have the right to do this?
Breach of contract, athletic scholarship, paying out the academic portion. You're not satisfying the athletic portion. We believe that the university will then come back and say, well, there aren't enough players on a team. There isn't a schedule. There aren't all these things in place. And we have answers for all of those, right? The affidavits are on the record now. They're registered with the court. All the information that you need about that court case is sitting on a file right now at Supreme Court. So it's all there.
Let's say, for sake of argument, that you win. What are the sequences now that have to be put in motion? Because obviously the team has to be reinstituted if a court injunction comes forward.
Well, in terms of where they play, there's still a Division II NCAA team then, and they can play an independent schedule. There's 5 Canadian teams, actually 6 Canadian teams that have stepped up, two in the same week. 4 American teams that have stepped up so far to say, we want to play Simon Fraser. Most of those games would be on the road. As well, a number of the teams in the Lone Star Conference had Simon Fraser on their schedule. We're at a time right now where it's impossible to find a team to fill Simon Fraser's spot with a number of those teams. Now those teams are well-run operations. The Lone Star Conference is always in the top 3 of Division II conferences. They sell season tickets. They sell sponsorships. They have an infrastructure around these games. If Simon Fraser is available for those games, a number of those schools will take Simon Fraser as an opponent. They could have a schedule with 12 games on the season. So they have a place to play as an independent. In terms of the roster, there's 95 players that are on the Simon Fraser roster. A number of them entered the transfer window, but there have been discussions between the coaching staff, the alumni, and these players, and they say if the team is revived through the court date, they will stay and play with Simon Fraser. Coaches were given severance packages. None of the coaches have cashed their checks. They're ready to come back and go as a coaching staff. So the coaching staff is there, right? The players are there. The schedule is there. The university has said this is not about the money. Amar Doman, the owner of the BC Lions, has helped the alumni raise $1 million extra to put into this program over the next few years, and is working with other business people within British Columbia to establish stable funding for the next 5 years on top of what the school already pays out. There's absolutely no excuse at this time for the university to not change course on this and find a way for this team to get back on the field in 2023.
So why would the university balk?
Well, why would the university make this decision in the first place? We still don't have the answer to that. We don't have a clear answer on that. We just don't. They talk about the student experience. Well, no one asked the students through a survey even what their experience was at the end of last year. That's one point on this. And in terms of the student experience, getting herded into a theater 30 minutes after an announcement with security guards on each side of the stage and 2 staff members telling people, hey, sorry, your program is canceled. And when people ask why from the crowd, the answer was, well, difficult decisions have to be made. That's not an answer. That's not a reason at the end of the day. Why are we at this juncture right now? Because the university administrators have dug their heels in. They're stubborn. They're not listening to the community around them. They're not listening to their constituents. They're not listening to their student athletes. They're not listening to their alumni. They've made a decision within their own management circle. At this hour, they're sticking to it. And there's still time for them to change course on this, and I really hope they do.
Is there concern at all that if the university administration wins the day, that there may be some other institutions around this country that might look at that and go, hey, maybe we could do that as well, because right now we're struggling with our program?
Honestly, this is the reason, the number one reason that I stepped up in this, is that I wanted to be in a position where we supported student athletes in this first and foremost, but also sent a signal that if one of our programs was under attack, like this in this instance, that we could rally the support of the football community nationwide, and it would be a very unpopular and very difficult move to make to cancel a university football program for all the reasons that I've mentioned in this podcast so far, in terms of the history piece, in terms of the bond with community, in terms of the responsibility to student athletes and their families, all of those things. And I think that we have proven beyond a reasonable doubt, and somebody in a senior position in Canadian university sport said to me 2 days ago, he said, man, if I'm running a football program and I thought about canceling that football program, there is no way I would do that now. So for us, from a Football Canada perspective, mission accomplished.
And how about you personally? Is taking a toll on you?
I signed up to this role as president of Football Canada to literally spread the gospel of the sport. The reason we do it is because we love this sport, and we know the effect that it has on the participants and the families and those people around the sport. Well, if you're not kind of evangelical about getting the message out and involving yourself, if you're going to be in this role, then you shouldn't be in this role. So as much as times that I can kind of privately grouse about 3-hour Zoom meetings and being on call 14 hours a day through all of this is what I signed up for. It's these moments, and there's, you know what, I'm not alone. There's other people like me that are with PSOs, who are on our board, who are on our staff, who work in the CFL office. You know, Brian Ramsey, the leader of the CFLPA, he really stepped up behind the scenes. You didn't see him be really present in this, but rest assured, I can tell you that he was trying to work every channel with the provincial government that we could. It's not just me. There's a whole team of people right now that are putting the same, if not more, time into this, and I really salute them, because they're dedicated not just to the history of the program, but those 95 kids that are on that roster, because what this university has done, the way they've done it and the way they've timed it, has done damage to the future education and athletic possibilities for these kids, and I just can't stand for it.
Jim Mullin, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Anytime. Thanks, Don. Appreciate it. I know we tried to get together about 3 or 4 times over the last week or so. We finally did it, man. We finally got it done.
We got there.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to our show. Third Down Gamble is hosted on Podbean and can be found on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Follow us on Twitter at Third Down Gamble. Join us again, the Third Down Gamble podcast, audio worth watching.
Third Down Gamble uses the expert resources provided by Canadian Football League player and game statistics for analytics, game notes, and statistics, and 3downnation.com for news, insight, and in-depth analysis. Please visit cfl.ca and 3downnation.com for the most up-to-date information on the Canadian Football League.